We will never live in a world without AI again. Probably AI employees will be the most visible and kind of impact. There is a temptation to get hooked up into the hype. Every security team needs to think very carefully and seriously about how that is part of their strategy. It's possible to do something called data poisoning as well, where people can inject information and actually create wrong answers. I think there will always be this balance between between control and the use of AI for productivity. As a vendor, we have to think about things like reverse engineering. Governments won't be able to save us from everything.
Welcome to Discover Dialogues podcast, powered by Tech Dogs. The world of business and technology is evolving at breakneck speed. AI breakthroughs, digital transformation, and game-changing innovations are reshaping industries every day. On this show, we dive into the trends, ideas, and strategies driving the future. We're sitting down with industry leaders, innovators, and disruptors to bring you fresh insights, bold perspectives, and real conversations that matter. So plug in, tune in, and let's discover what's next.
Today on the show, we have David Evans, VP of Product Management at GoTo. With over 15 years of experience in AI-driven business communications, cybersecurity, and IT management, David has been at the forefront of shaping innovative SaaS solutions. He's passionate about making complex technology accessible, driving AI-powered customer engagement, and transforming the way businesses communicate. Let's dive in.
Hi, David. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I am doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good as well. It's good to have you on the show. You've had a fascinating journey across cybersecurity, IT management, and then product management. You worked across small businesses, you worked across enterprises. Why don't you walk us through your journey a little?
Yeah, thank you. It's a really exciting opportunity for me to come on and kind of share some of my thoughts, and maybe I probably frame my journey in two halves. I've only worked for a few companies really in my career. It sounds like I've been through a lot of different industries and different companies, but there's actually only a small number of steps. I've just worked for companies that have done a lot under one roof and had a chance to move around. So I started in the pharmaceutical industry. Really interesting place to start, highly regulated. I got a really good appreciation for big organizations and what it means to create things inside that kind of framework. And I worked in IT. I was a total IT geek back in the day, and then I had the chance to move into software. So I worked for a relatively small company that was then acquired again by a big company, and this was where I got into Symantec, which now acquired by Broadcom. Lots of brands under one roof, and I cut my teeth, learnt my product trade around some really smart people there at Symantec. And then I took the chance to took a big pair of dice, and I threw them, and I changed industries and moved out of cybersecurity and endpoint management into business communications, and that's where I've been for maybe the last 6 years with Vonage originally, and now fortunate to pair up with GoTo, and I've been here as VP of product for a few years. And the cool thing about GoTo is it's two halves. Half is business communications, half is IT systems management, which was the first half of my career. So it's probably the only company in the world where my career fits perfectly right inside the roof of GoTo. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell in my career.
Perfect. Obviously, I think the last couple of years, AI has taken the center stage. It's automating workflows, enhancing customer interactions. Do you really think AI is influencing the future of business and technology?
Okay, yeah, so it's a really difficult question to answer in some respects, because there's nothing that we're doing today that isn't touched by AI, both in our personal lives and in our business lives. So you can there's it's a difficult question to answer because of the broadness, but in some ways it's easy because it touches everything. And the simple answer to that is, yeah, it's going to transform the way that we think about everything. And I'll give you a specific example in the software industry. AI is helping us, at home. It's helping us when we're operating our businesses, but it's also helping us to build software. But it asks some challenging questions of when AI is building software, it becomes very easy. And then so you get this ubiquitous access to software. But then you're like, well, how valuable now is that software? Now it's so easy to create. So like AI is changing everything. And I think we have seen, and it's worth thinking about AI, maybe two broad stages. We had that first generation of AI in customer experience. We weren't always great at using it in that first experience. Some of those early options, especially during the pandemic when they were rushed out, they weren't great in all cases. But now we live in this world of generative AI, this second wave. And this is special. This is as big as, probably the internet is probably the order of magnitude, which sounds dramatic, but it is as influential as that. So it's something we need to think about very carefully, but be careful about the hype as well, right? There's a lot around AI that we've still got to work out. So yeah, I'm one of those that truly believes that AI it's here to stay. I had this realization actually last week that we will never live in a world without AI again, and we won't ever look back. So yeah, it's an incredible time.
Do you use AI often yourself on a personal slash professional level? Are there things that you use it for quite often?
Yeah, so I think especially probably over the last 6 months or so, there's a couple of things that have grown into my daily life. The first one is that I sit in a lot of meetings. I probably sit in 8 hours of meetings a day pretty consistently, and having technology that can listen while those meetings are going on, summarize them, capture the actions. I'm really bad at doing some of that stuff. Taking the notes and actually creating follow-up actions has made a big difference to my life. It's made me more productive and more organized. And then I'm doing probably what a lot of us are doing out there. I'm using things like Chat GPT to do deep research, to ask questions, to improve things, and in some cases to create material that historically would have taken quite a long time to create. Right now, as a product team, we're moving into some very product specific tools. We could probably do a whole podcast just on those, how it's changing product management, but maybe that's for another day. But yeah, just the sort of the low hanging fruit, the easy to access stuff is so impactful right now. And I think as we go forward from here, it will be more specialized, more interesting, more powerful.
And David, do you think as AI is becoming more mainstream, it's easy to get caught up in the excitement and actually not see a lot of results? And in your opinion, differentiates those businesses that are able to successfully, adopt AI or integrate AI into their processes? For that note, would love to understand how is GoTo approaching.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think there is a temptation to get hooked up into the hype, and I'll give you an example of how sometimes we see this with our customer base. So we're in the transition of sort of business communications going from on-prem to the cloud. We're kind of halfway through that journey. Roughly. And we've actually seen some customers hold off some of those more what they call traditional projects in favor of saying, well, I need to have something AI on my project book here. My leadership is not going to allow me not to do AI. And that's a little dangerous, right? Because that forces you to do AI for the sake of AI. And I think we'd all agree that it's probably not a great place to start. The only good thing about that is that you just have to start somewhere. Some people are staying out altogether and saying, I just don't feel confident. And I don't think that's the right approach either. I think it's important that everybody starts, cutting their teeth on this technology and figuring out how to use it. Now, AI is exactly the same. AI is a wild west right now of like cool things that you can do. And so that's how I think businesses can try and stay away from the hype, is to make sure that you're either internally or you're working with vendors that have a very practical, I love this word, practical approach to using AI. Don't get caught up in it can do everything. It still can't do everything, right? But it is very, very good at doing a certain set of things. So I think as long as you're keeping very connected to the business value, you're keeping very connected to the human part of what deploying AI is all about in your organization, and you're partnering with vendors that have a passion for doing it in a practical way, usually you can steer clear from some of the issues out there.
So, David, in one of our previous conversations, I think you had mentioned that, at GoTo, you guys are trying to compartmentalize things and are trying to add value to your end customer. What are some of the exciting things that you guys are working on?
Yeah, it's a great question. So again, I'd probably start by saying that GoTo, because we have this model of we take complicated things and we bring it to our customers when it's ready. It's when it's easy to use, easy to deploy, really high value. We couldn't do that with the first generation of AI. We just simply couldn't bring it at that ease of use and price point. So we stayed out in that first wave. But when generative AI first came on the scene, the LLMs started, coming through. And these LLMs are doing to, or vendors that are building these, they're doing to AI what Azure and AWS and Google Cloud did to infrastructure. They're creating these really powerful platforms. So for GoTo, if this is the best thing we'd ever seen. Suddenly we had all these toys to play with that we couldn't really access before. So again, we've got this culture of only bringing it when it's ready. And so we've been, children in a sweet store, right? We've seen all of this amazing stuff that's coming at us. And so what we've been able to do is, again, apply that model, take all that really complicated, fast moving, kind of crazy evolving stuff and bring out snapshots of really clear value. So we started in our meetings product, making sure that we had that summarization in there, do the kind kind of the what we call AI around the edge. So how do we assist with that? And we then moved into, okay, let's summarize conversations that agents are having with customers. Again, capture the key points, the actions, push it into the CRM. We then do real-time sentiment analysis, all this really good stuff that helps, especially agents, but all employees to be more productive. Then we started to get a little bit more adventurous. So this was great. This was fun. Our customers loved it. Then we moved into a second phase, which is, GoTo is fairly new into the contact center world. So we've been around for maybe 4 or 5 years. We have a really fast growing business. Customers are really getting behind the ethos that we're doing here. But we didn't have some of the more advanced functionalities that some of our competitors have, right? So now the good news for us is that we can actually build those using AI from the ground up. So something that we've done, good example, AI quality management. So quality management is how do you know your agents are doing a good job out there? How do you give them a scorecard that helps you to coach them and make them better? It would have taken us, probably 2 years to build this thing, but within maybe 3 to 6 months, we've built it from the ground up using AI. Super easy to turn on, really sophisticated, really reliable. And we've just released that, I think, in the last couple of weeks. So that's the second phase, is moving from AI around the edge, which is really powerful, to actually fundamentally building solutions from the ground up. And now we're into the third wave. The third wave is AI employees, right? Really exciting opportunity for us to augment employees out there. So that's what we've been doing, is we stayed really practical and grounded. We're using it at the heart of our product, and we're really early into the kind of voice-centric sort of AI employee market as well. So again, really fun time, really happy to have had this technology come our way.
One of the things that I have seen, and there are two schools of thought when it comes to AI being used by individuals or slash professions at workplaces. So the first is that, you have your employees or your workforce using AI. They are enhancing their productivity. There is some kind of a apprehension on, should I be telling my organization, am I using it? And that's where I think GoTo kind of did it very differently, whether it rewarded people for using it. I think that then kind of solves the problem that people are now not apprehended for using something that will enhance their productivity. And the second school of thought that is now, I think the last 6 months or 9 months is all about, will AI take my job away? And specifically because there's a lot of talk around AI agents, being able to do a lot more an individual. Should we be worried? And, what should one do?
Okay, so yeah, this is a conversation that we have a lot here at GoTo, both from the point of view of we're all employees, right? We all think about this in our day-to-day job, but we're also thinking about that because the software that we create at GoTo is being transformed by AI. The very nature of it, as you said, is changing. We've forever been in the market of enabling humans to connect better, and now we're suddenly partially in the market of making sure that we can serve humans with a more accessible experience. And I think there's again, we can apply pragmatism in this, and it's. We can't say that no jobs will be changed, because it's very clear that is going to happen to some degree. So I think we need to be conscious of it. But I think that there's going to be this beautiful period in the middle where I really hope that there won't be job losses. What I hope there will be is a massive increase in productivity in the people that we have, that will allow businesses to do more with the people they have. That may have the knock-on effect of not creating as many jobs in those traditional roles that are transformed. But I really think we'll live for quite some time in a world where AI will act as a friend, as a scaling factor to the humans that we have. And I think when there is a time when AI comes along and it is able to provide solutions and services which are ultimately better for the end consumer, and in some cases that's possible. I think the nature of jobs changes. AI creates a different type of job. So whether it's monitoring or training, it does create a world as well. So I think we're in a transitionary period, and people do need to be aware. You have to be aware of how AI is potentially changing your role. And the more you can go with it, the more you can use technology to power up the way that you work. I think that's the way to create real job protection right now, is to make sure that you're really embracing it. But yeah, when it's inevitably there's a world where this technology is going to be impactful, and we'll live through that. We've been through that in the past, when industrialization happened and completely changed it. We're really good at adapting as humans and as a world. So I think it's right to be cautious. You just need to be educated and aware. You need to be using the technology. But I think it's, I don't think it's doom and gloom in the way that some people think that it is.
And talking about concerns, the other concern that's spoken a lot about is about privacy and it's about security. Now, what I recall, you at some point worked with Semantic, you worked with. How do you think AI is going to impact privacy and security?
Yeah. So I probably have a more cautious tone here. I'm a half glass half full kind of guy. I tend to look very positively on most things. I think, and maybe it's because of the many years that I spent in cybersecurity. I think this is a very serious aspect of AI because we've already talked about data leakage and just how easy it is for really important information to leak out. You need to be very careful about that. But I also think there are other areas like transparency. You need to be very transparent with your customers where you're employing AI. We've seen some very high profile cases of that being an issue already. And I think we're getting ahead of it in a really positive way. But you have to make sure that when you're employing AI, that there's a lot of transparency in that with when you're serving end customers. I also think that the landscape of cybersecurity has completely changed. I mean, I was working in cybersecurity, thankfully, when really this technology was in its infancy. I imagine that all of my old colleagues are probably sitting there thinking, "Oh my God, this is a whole different world, right?" So thinking about AI as a cybersecurity threat, it is every security team needs to think very carefully and seriously about how that is part of their strategy. And again, pairing up with vendors that are able to do that is great. But there's even really subtle little things like it's possible to do something called data poisoning as well, where people can inject information and actually create wrong answers. And sure enough, AI is pretty good at creating wrong answers already, but there are malicious ways of starting to do that. And then as a vendor, we have to think about things like reverse engineering. If we put AI employees out there, it's actually possible to start mining the AI employee itself to find information behind it. So I think this is probably, and I think the ethical use of AI as well. I think the security and the ethicalness, and I'm lucky to sit in the UK. I feel like we're leading. I think EMEA as a whole is leading the world right now.
Do you think, as businesses or organizations who are implementing AI solutions or creating AI solutions, there are certain things that they ought to do by themselves to ensure, say 3 years from now, or maybe it could be much sooner, or maybe 5 years from now, they are still all right?
Yeah. So I think the answer here depends on the size of the organization a little bit. I think larger companies, have the luxury of maybe being able to dedicate somebody to this role. You need experts. I mean, these people are going to be hard to come by, right? They'll be in demand, and so in some cases you may need to assign somebody and have them be trained on it, right? So, but we now live in we have zero trust frameworks and all kinds of cool things that happen out there. So I think for larger companies, it's just about making sure you're making the right investments, and I think to the most part that's going to happen. The interesting question is what happens if you're small enough that you can't really do that, or it's really hard to do. And I think that's where partnering with service providers and vendors that really specialize in what you do, finding the right partners who can do that for you at scale, I think is probably the key. So I think having no help and no assistance or no eye on this is a dangerous thing to do. But yeah, if you need to find the right partners and find somebody that cares about your mission specifically, because the way this technology and the regulation applies is different per industry, it's different per the sort of segment or size of your organization as well. So yeah, seek out partners if you need to, because they can certainly help. It's no perfect answer, but they can certainly help to give you that scale.
Earlier you talked about how the UK government obviously leading or positioning itself in the use of or being ethical in the use of AI. But there's one more initiative the UK government has taken up for the next decade or the year or so, is about unleashing the true power of AI for economic growth. Where do you see yourself contributing to that?
Yeah, so I think there will always be this balance between between control and the use of AI for productivity. Many of us will find ourselves in a position where we're like, I really think AI could help with this, or maybe there's a little bit of confidential information in here, but yeah, nobody will know. Well, let's use it and do this. And I think it's really important that we, despite what government approaches will be, some will be ahead of it, some will be a little bit behind, some will, and maybe the best way to frame that is some will be much more cautious and careful, and some will be like, look, we're going to take some risk here, and we're going to use this to jump ahead. We're going to use this as an accelerator, and I think everybody will play with that balance. I think ultimately a lot of the the decision making happens at an individual level and how we deploy these tools. So I think IT teams can do a lot. I think security teams can do a lot. But in terms of using AI to at a country scale to accelerate industries, I think it's about investment. It's about the way that governments deploy money, and then there needs to be. If you're playing the long game, which I think most people should, it's about how you get that grassroots education into schools, and making sure that we're preparing people to come into a world where AI is completely changing everything. So I think it just touches every fabric, the fabric of our society is completely transformed by AI. So I think it's important to to look at what's happening, the markets that you're operating in. I think about the markets that you live in and the countries you live in is really important. But I think a lot of the responsibility is on the individual as well, to make sure that they understand the good and the bad, and are educated correctly as well. So yeah, governments won't be able to save us from everything, I don't think.
What is GoTo doing specifically to facilitate, adoption of AI, for their customers or probable customers? Any new things that you guys are coming up with? Some sneak peeks if you have for us.
Yeah, I can certainly give you that. So we're about to hit a really exciting time of the year for us. Our biggest industry event is Enterprise Connect. That's coming up in a couple of weeks. So you're seeing a lot of announcements coming out, and GoTo is no different. So I've talked about some of the things that we did in AI, kind of around the edge, but you say we've just released that AI quality management. So any company out there now can just turn this on, flick of a switch, and immediately have this wonderful kind of scorecard. It gives you beautiful coaching tips. When you come in, you turn these on, and within like 10 minutes, you're like, this is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. That's the type of instant hit that GoTo is trying to create. Really low touch, low effort, high value. And we've done that with another solution. So it's called topic and sentiment detection. So a typical company will listen to a small sample of customer calls and kind of hope that they get a sense of what's going on. Well, now you've got AIQM, but I'm going to have one plug. I'm going to do one shameless plug for, we've got an AI receptionist coming out. So again, a lot of our customers are in that smaller, mid-size, multi-location, they're car dealerships, they're dentists, they're this type of customer. And we've got this wonderful service coming out. And I mean, it's mind-blowing. You have to, if you try, even if you just try, it's incredible. But what it's able to do is if you have a receptionist, or even if you don't have one, it can sit there, it can take calls, it can understand what people need, it can route calls to the right person, it can answer questions based on, even if you've just got a bunch of Word documents, we can pull that in and we can answer questions. And then as we go through the year, it will be booking appointments. And so you can leave it on after hours when your receptionist goes home. It can cover lunch breaks. It's such a fun piece of technology. We've been using it in-house as well. One of our support lines has been fully staffed by this technology. So we're totally using it ourselves as well. So yeah, that's what we've got going on right now that's getting me very, very excited. The industry has yet to perfectly coin the term yet, but digital workforce, AI workforce, AI employees, these are all terms that kind of mean the same thing, which is how you're able to create these types of roles. So the way that we look at it is that we started with a receptionist because that really resonates with the customer base that we have. It's also a simpler place to start for us. It was a great place to figure out this technology and deploy it. We're then going through a program of then having assistive technology, so having an agent assist. So if you're an agent out there, it will help you to provide better service. Then we'll move into AI agents. They're really advanced, able to do some very, very cool stuff. And then we'll sort of tap into the idea of an AI sales rep. So I'm not too sure, selling and even giving service is still a human experience, right? So I'm not 100% sure that we'll be in a world where, AI will do all the selling, but this is the program that we've got on.
I'm definitely going to look forward to that. David, what do you think is going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years? What's going to change? How is it going to look like?
So I think that, the pandemic was an interesting accelerator for us, but, and I think it's easy to look back at the pandemic and say that it forced, in some cases, whole generations. So, we think about demographics a lot because they consume technology differently. And I think the pandemic forced, whole segments of society into digital channels, into this technology. I think that pace is now coming into the future. And I think the only thing that's going to hold us back is actually our ability as humans to consume the change and to actually have confidence to put something out there, knowing that 6 months later, there's going to be something completely different. And so it's a little bit of a journey in consuming the pace, and maybe the technology will have to slow down a little bit because we won't be able to consume it. I think that and maybe if I keep specifically to our industry in this example, I think AI employed to create better customer experiences. I think that again is here to stay. That we'll see lots of that over the next 3 years. The idea that we as consumers will contact a business and speak to a human, we might find that that becomes more difficult over time. And actually, we might find we quite enjoy working with this technology. And actually, it's okay to have an instant on, kind of piece. And then I think the idea of this digital workforce, that this is going to be, I think, the fundamental change here when we can put this technology to work for really, really good purposes out there. And so I think that the probably AI employees will be the most visible kind of impact that we'll see on a day-to-day basis. But I think what's happening underneath is also going to be very, a very fast acceleration in the way that technology evolves. So I wouldn't like to predict, honestly. I've been so surprised over the last 18 months how fast we've come. So, but I think those are some of the things that are, front of my mind right now.
There is the rise of AI adoption on both sides. So, I'm going to be using AI for maybe some of the services that I offer. My customer is going to be using AI to probably evaluate me, for the services that I offer. And then what do we do in the simplest sense, right? So, as humans, you have AI agents interacting with AI agents to make a business decision. Okay. At the end of it, what is your and my role now?
I think this is like modern day philosophy now, right? These are the things we actually have to think about. And I think that I do believe that we'll exist for a really long time with human in the loop. I mean, human in the loop is a term that if you haven't, if anybody who's listening hasn't heard that, it's just the concept of making sure that there's always oversight. And there are reasons why that's important. That there are certain things about people that you can't replicate. You can make a close approximation, so things like emotion and empathy and those types of things, and creativity, and there's a lot of what we do as humans that is just magical in the way that our brains work. And I think technology can mimic that, but it can't replace it. So I think I believe that we will need to operate with human in the loop for a really long time. And you know what, I think we'll want to, even if we didn't have to. I think we'll want to, because it's the essence of who we are, and it's creativity.
You mentioned creativity. So back in the day when you used to create copies, you had to create content, you'd really bring in a creative guy to understand something and then, really craft it out. And now you have these AI tools who just really can do it much better and much faster. Do you think AI is questioning creativity or what it means to be creative?
Okay, so as somebody who's married to somebody who is wildly artistically talented, we have had this conversation a number of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So you can imagine me going there and saying, "Hey, look, I've managed to generate this image," and she's like, "No," like it's so I think it's I. I think it depends on how you define how you define creativity. So I think what AI will do is bring a certain level of creative ability to everybody. Everybody will be able to create some level of of capability. I think a lot of things will become easier. I think I think AI will understand how we work and how our brains work and craft things that can do that. So I think it will be very impactful. I think where it won't be as impactful, I think, is in the creative world, because part of what we love about things that are created by creative people is that they're created by people, that there's personality that has gone into that. I think even if AI can create beautiful things, and it can create beautiful things, I just think that our emotional connection to them is not the same. And I think AI does ask some challenging questions in a few places, but I deeply believe that the way we value creative industries won't change, and the way that humans will, the talent that humans bring to that, I think is one of the areas that I think will stay kind of sacrosanct.
The way I look at it, what's happening right now is that there's a lot of brands or businesses who are trying to, adopt AI. And then there's this question around, should I buy something off the shelf or should I build something? How do you think businesses should operate?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So I think there are two parts to this answer. I think the first one is a company's ability to be able to create themselves, and I think that historically larger companies had tons of resources and could create things, and smaller companies usually had to buy. It were more likely to buy off the shelf. I think one of the things that AI does is it gives power to smaller organizations to be more creative themselves. And so I think it will be easier for all companies to have this sense of being able to build. But if I were to be pushed on where I think things will go, is that is maybe the second part of my answer, which is the one thing that AI and technology advancement is doing to most industries, and it's happening a lot in business communications right now, is it's that there are so many good vendors in this space, right? So many really good solutions out there that what businesses are doing is they're starting to specialize. They're starting to specialize in verticals. They're starting to specialize in segments. And I think that because the technology is moving so fast, I still think the right thing to do, or one of the best things to do, is to find a partner. Don't find a solution. Don't find a piece of technology, but find a company that shares the vision of where you're going. Because the idea that one individual company can keep up is going to be under a lot of threat. Companies, but we do sell to a lot of large companies that just value that. Look, if I put $1 in here, I get a total dollar's worth of consumable value out. So I think my recommendation generally, and this is in probably all technology areas, not just ours, is to find a partner, find somebody that talks the same language and cares about the problems that you're facing in your industry and in your segment. And I think we'll probably find that will win out. That these champions, so GoTo, we even have this as part of our tagline. We're a champion of these types of businesses. And so, yeah, that's probably my recommendation is just, find partners, don't find solutions, because that's the only way you'll be able to keep up, I think.
Okay, all right. So, David, here's what we're going to do next. We're going to do a quick rapid fire questions section with you.
Let's do it.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl, 100%.
Data driven or gut driven?
So interesting, in the middle, like right in the middle. So I love data, but it doesn't replace the beautiful, wonderful creativity that is out there as well.
Higher for skills or higher for attitude?
Attitude. Again, I'm kind of I felt passionately about this. I've done both, and I usually find attitude wins out every time.
Short-term wins or long-term vision?
So right now, it used to be long-term vision. That was always the way. Like we had time.
Who has better management skills, you or your wife?
My wife, without question. So my wife is my wife is a wonderful kind of architect of our lives and our day-to-day existence.
Okay. One book that you would recommend everyone should read?
So I think a good strategy, bad strategy is a book that I've grown to love deeply. It's my kind of secret sauce for how to think strategically about long-term direction.
One hobby that you would love to pick up?
Hobby I would love to pick up. I think, do you know what? I would love to take better care of myself physically. I would love to become a gym fanatic.
Apple or Android?
Apple.
If you were to work remotely, one place where you would love to go and work?
Ooh, that's a great question. Really, I spent a lot of time in India.
So yeah, that's a wrap on the rapid fire section. Thank you so much for your you've been one of the best ones to have this section with so far.
Okay.
Loved it. Thank you so much, David, for joining us today.
Yeah, I think, well, I'll close by saying first, thank you. You've been a fantastic host. It's always a pleasure to come and do these things. We all have different thoughts about the different industries that we're in, and it's always fun to discuss them at this level. So it's been a huge amount of fun. I think in terms of what I would leave people with is maybe just to maybe capture a couple of points that I said previously. Is technology, and especially AI, it's here to stay. It's never going away. And as much as we might have some concerns and apprehension, it's something to embrace, and we will learn how to use it in a really positive way. But I think again, it's all about partnerships from here on out. It's all about, like, I don't think any one organization or group or person will exist as an island with this technology. The more that we can connect together, the more that we can care about the same things, and create these nice partnerships as we travel through this journey, I think the stronger that we'll be together. So yeah, we try to make connections with people that care about the same things as we do. And it also makes creating software and business a lot more fun as well, when you've got that mission, that kind of shared mission and shared values as well. So yeah, don't be afraid of AI, but yeah, just be careful with it and choose the right partners.
All right, perfect. Once again, thank you so much, David. This has been a fascinating conversation.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, or your favorite podcast app. Catch past episodes and more at techdogs.com. See you next time.